Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, we're going to be checking out the brand new Diamond Select Toys Ghostbusters Taxi Driver Zombie. Now, to come included with the Taxi Driver Zombie, you get yourself a product catalog from Diamond Select, showcasing some of the other things that you can get with a fully completed Rooftop diorama. There's some Vinnie mates and some mini mates. And on the back, got some larger pieces like the Slimer gelatin mold, and yeah, I figured he was going to fall. Slimer bank, and so on and so forth. We're just going to lay him down for a second. I want to talk about him for a second. Well, I will talk about him a lot more in a second. You got your Ghostbusters Select Rooftop Temple diorama assembly instructions. Show you how everything kind of comes together. Now, I picked this up at my local comic book store. So through the process of that, I ended up getting the one that has the rooftop pieces. But there's also ones that you can get that don't have the diorama. I've decided very early into collecting these that I was not going to be building the diorama. It just, nothing against Diamond Select Toys, because I think it's really cool that they made this, but I just simply did not have the space to accommodate a giant diorama. Maybe other people did. Congratulations. Unfortunately, I did not. So I did get the rooftop diorama pieces with Taxi Driver Zombie, and these little pieces come together like that. And then there's this little piece right here that goes, I think it goes just right in the middle if I'm understanding the instructions correctly. Just kind of doesn't, well, it's supposed to snap into place, but that's basically, I guess what you can always do too is, I'll just double check my instructions here. Certain diorama pieces I suppose I could just keep, so I still have them kicking around. Yeah, these pieces go, actually I think it's supposed to go in the middle, and then I'm supposed to sandwich them on either side. Yeah, I think this is supposed to go, yeah, there we go. I suppose what I could always do too is just keep this part of the diorama and then simply take the Ghostbusters and just display them on top. You know, something like that. But to build the complete diorama is, I just don't have the space, unfortunately, to accommodate that. That being the case, let's move that to the side. And hopefully I can get the Taxi Driver Zombie to stand. He has one big glaring issue. We'll say issue. Let's get some measurements going first while he can hopefully stand. Taxi Driver Zombie stands just a little over 7 inches tall. He does come with his steering wheel, which is actually one thing that I sort of wish that the Taxi Driver could have actually came with. You know, two options, because generally the options available for the Ghostbusters Select figures are either diorama or non-diorama. In a case such as him, because he only plays really one role in the entire movie, in which the patron enters the back of the taxi and is not greeted immediately because he doesn't realize who it is, but the camera pans around and you see that there's a zombie driving the taxi. I wish actually that the driver, this guy right here, could have come with a small little, it could have either easily just been a single-seater, or it could have been a double-seated front portion with a dash of the taxi. The steering wheel would have been affixed to the dashboard, and then you could have actually had the taxi driver sitting inside the dashboard, just diorama, and have him sitting like this. I think that would have been perfect. Then if you wanted to collect the diorama, you could have done that. If you want to collect the regular release version of the zombie here, you could have collected him along with the interior diorama, just the front part. Didn't have to be the entire car, but just the front 2 seats, the dashboard, and of course the steering wheel, so that you can have him displayed like that. I think that would have been perfect. That being said, he does come with his steering wheel, but it's just a free-floating steering wheel. So what you could always do, like I did at the beginning of this review, is you can kind of bend his arms, angle his hands, And you can do a somewhat decent enough job of having him holding the steering wheel, which is probably one of the other slight issues that I have with the figure, is that he doesn't really hold the steering wheel all that well. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. Let's not drop the steering wheel in the process of it. But he doesn't really hold it all that well. In fact, getting him to... You kind of have to just wedge it against his thumbs, and he does eventually hold it, it just doesn't sit very well. It doesn't sit very well at all. The culprit being is that his hands were not sculpted to properly hold the steering wheel. Instead of actually just giving us a gripping hand, one of which that could have just easily latched onto the sides of the steering wheel, they actually kept the hands somewhat relaxed, which is somewhat perplexing because really the nature of this particular zombie, you really only see him in one part of the movie. That why couldn't they have sculpted the hands to properly hold the steering wheel? Strange. Again, you can get it. It's just a case of patience, determination, and a little bit of luck. But you can get him actually to hold this. I don't know why he's not holding it right now, but you can get him to hold the steering wheel. Let's just kind of put that to the side. The figure as a whole is great, really, for a figure that, not banging the camera, but for a figure that really only the character is in the movie for a short period of time, and it actually is one of the scariest part of Ghostbusters, in my honest opinion. When I was younger, and I used to watch Ghostbusters on TV all the time, this particular scene right here was always the scene that I turned away from. Whenever I saw the zombie in the cab, I quickly closed my eyes. I didn't want to see it. Because he was a scary-looking character. He was one of the more scarier ghouls in the Ghostbusters property. It's pretty neat, though, that Diamond Select gave us a release of this guy when certainly other companies that were handling the Ghostbusters property, Mattel, would rather just give us multiple versions of the same Ghostbusters using the same molds. Diamond Select, on the other hand, decided to give us the other characters as well, and I think that's really cool. The one thing I don't really like about the figure is because you only see really, you see about that much of the zombie taxi driver upward in the movie, that really everything else down below is either artist interpretation or they actually took it from the original concept drawings for this particular creature, this particular zombie, and based on that, they designed the figure. The reason why I say that is because you get down to his feet. He's got a really neat sculpted foot where you can see his toes are peeking through a ripped shoe. The other foot, on the other hand, is sculpted not only arched, there doesn't allow enough clearance, enough little extra headway there on the heel. The foot is bent. Bent, flat, and extremely thin. So you can imagine the frustrations with trying to get this guy to stand. Unless you get yourself a display stand, which I'm just making use of just a generic Harley Quinn display stand. Unless you get yourself a display stand, he has one heck of a time actually trying to get to stand. And the problem as well is that his ankles, let me just take his foot off here. His ankles, there's a ball joint on the foot and it's slightly loose so that the one stable foot that you want to get him to properly stand on, that foot is slightly flopping a little bit around, so he doesn't have proper footing, and he tends to topple over. That was timed perfectly. If we overlook the small little nitpicks, it's a glorious looking figure. Let's get some close-up looks at his face. Again, you can hopefully allow this particular reviewer some allowance for the fact that when he was younger, this certain scene would have scared me. A really grotesque, ghoulish-looking zombie. I mean, it's almost to the point of having a skeleton riding the taxi, just shy of a little bit of flesh that's remaining on its bones. The sculpt on the eyes is quite good, despite the fact that they are recessed as far back into the sockets as they are. The teeth are ghoulish and gruesome, and I love that. It's a great-looking figure. I could say that it has a little bit too much brown kind of slopped on there, that it kind of comes across. It actually comes across like a melted chocolate. Here's my analogy. Here's my comparison. it kind of reminds me of a chocolate bar that has nuts. You're like, where are you going with this? It's like a chocolate bar that you've left out for a while. Let's say it's an O. Henry bar, and it's melted away that you can start seeing the interior of the chocolate bar where the chocolate has started to melt away. Like the nuts, the nougat, all that other stuff. I would call this guy melted chocolate bar. That's why I'm not in marketing. But the outfit is great. He comes with a little beanie cap going on there, and a little bit of hair on the back for good measures. I mean, all of which are all things that appear on the character in the movie. Diamond Select simply has just done a great job of recreating him in a 7-inch figure. He's got some slightly tattered pants, a couple of gashes there on the sides of the leg. Again, I don't know if that's based on the actual source material or if Diamond Select just has decided to go in and say, you know what, we only really see him from this part up. Let's have a little bit of fun when it comes to sculpting of him, like from the waist down. And again, that might be where this one foot originates from. Just wish that that was actually just a shoe, the same as this side over here. He's got a rubbery jacket, which, you know, if you kind of separate, it's interesting if you separate it, you can see a little bit of his lower torso, and which is neat because you really want, I don't know why they would have sculpted that little bit of bone and corpse right there when you really wouldn't have even seen it unless you separate out the jacket. Some rips there exposing his white shirt underneath. Surprisingly, the shirt is nice and pristine. So is really most of his pants and his jacket for that matter. They got a little bit of a light gray dabbed in there as well, just to give a little bit of wear to it. It's a great, again, looking figure. Just from an actual application standpoint of getting him to stand can be a little bit more problematic. Running through his posability. Now this is going to be, well, limited. He does have a ball joint on the head, which as you can see, plugged in very easily there. But be careful rotating the head. That's one thing I noticed, that because the neck is so very thin, you don't want to rotate it too much left and right. If it's a little bit tense, you rotate it, you might run the risk of twisting and adding stress marks to the neck. So just kind of be mindful of that. Shoulders hinge outward, as well as a all-the-way rotation on the arms, a rotation on the bicep. Just a single hinge given you on the elbow, as well as a rotation on the hand. I guess you could say there's a moderate amount of, like a little pivot there on the wrist, but it's mostly just a swivel. His waist, I should say, not his ankles, his waist rotates back and forth. Does look like maybe there's a little bit of a crunch going on there. This feels again like it's rubbery like the jacket. And then your legs go forward, back, and out. He has a swivel cut on about a half thigh swivel cut. He has a double hinge knee. I don't really know why, because again, why would you necessarily need to have a double hinge on a knee for a character that's likely going to be sitting or likely going to be standing? But they put that in there. Both the feet do pivot back and forth. This particular one does not have any sort of ankle rock. This one, however, has, just because it looks like it's got a hinge, and then at the base of it, there's a ball joint that attaches itself into the shoe. And there's the underside of the shoe. It's, again, a great time to be a Ghostbusters fan, especially with Diamond Select churning out some brand new characters that you really would not have seen. I would never have, in a million years, expected to find the zombie taxi driver ever being released in a figure. He's in the movie for a short period of time, and during that short period of time, freaked the crap out of me. But it's really cool that Diamond Select would have released this guy in plastic form. Just as a side note, though, I kind of wish that his hands would have actually been able to properly grip the steering wheel a little bit better. And I certainly wish that maybe, I don't know, artist's interpretation would have also allowed for maybe 2 shoes on either side so that you could actually have properly stood him up. A diorama for the taxi would have been awesome as well, but that being said, it's still a great looking figure, and he will be on display with the other Ghostbusters team. Today we were checking out the brand new Ghostbusters Select from Diamond Select Toys. This was the zombie taxi driver. What's the actual Just looking over at the pack. It's Taxi Driver Zombie. That is the actual correct name for him. You could have said Zombie Taxi Driver. I don't think anyone would correct you on that because it's basically the same thing. You're just switching around the words. But that's what we were looking at today. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that little subscribe button down below. You're good to go. And if you're a fan of the Diamond Select Ghostbusters line, would you actually believe there's a playlist on this channel that features every single video, every single figure that I've done a review of? It's there. It's on a playlist for your viewing pleasure. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.